So, hi, and welcome to a super delayed Booktube-A-Thon wrap-up. I apologize if I keep looking away from the screen. I just got some cool new filming equipment, and it shows me what I'm filming right above the camera, and so I keep looking up to look at myself instead of looking at the camera. So now you know why I keep doing that. I am gonna give you guys a wrap-up of how I did on Booktube-A-Thon. I completed all the challenges, and I read 7 books in the week. I did not vlog, I didn't do any of the video challenges, but I read all week long and it was so fun. I did participate in like the Twitter stuff and the Twitter sprints, and I was blogging all the time on Tumblr and on WordPress throughout the week, so that was really cool. And it was just really cool to be part of the community and basically be reading while everybody else was reading, because everyone was just so invested in being such bookworms last week rather, and it was just really cool. So I'm going to go over what I read and how I liked everything that I read and what challenges each book satisfied. So without any further ado, here is my Booktube-A-Thon 2017 wrap-up. Alright, so first I read Love Overdue by Pamela Morrissey, and this satisfied the challenge to read a book in a day. This is just a cute little romance book about a girl who's a librarian, and she goes to a small town because she finally gets a job as a librarian. I did read this in a day. It was a very fluffy adult romance book, and it was just super easy to get through. I decided to read this book for Booktube-A-Thon not only because I knew that I could read it in a day and read it really fast, and I needed to get through as many books as possible for the week, but also I've had it for like 3 years, I want to say. It was just time. It was just finally time to read this book. It was recommended to me by a customer a long time ago, and so I did read it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It just had some really like amateur writing and some inconsistencies in character traits and dialogue, but overall it was pretty cute. You know, it was fluffy and easy and just exactly what I needed at the time for the Booktube-A-Thon, so I ended up giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars, so nothing great, but I honestly went into it expecting to give it 1 star, so I guess it did better than it was gonna do. Next I picked up Feuds by Avery Hastings. This satisfied the challenge of reading a book that you bought based on its cover. And like I said in my TBR video, I totally bought this because it has a ballerina on the cover. That's why I bought this, and it was awful. So that is what I get for buying a book based on its cover. I ended up giving this a star. 1 out of 5 stars. If I could, I would give it less, but it was awful. It was super predictable and not at all original or interesting, and the love story made me just want to pull my hair out, and I had just figured out every single plot point by like page 13, and I decided to just go through with it because, as you can see, it's like super tiny, so I decided to push through and finish the whole thing. Not worth it. This is not a good book. Maybe the worst book I've ever read, so 0 out of 10, do not recommend. Next I read Gwenpool Volume 1, and this satisfied the challenge of reading a book entirely outside. I chose this one because it's super short and I didn't want to spend a lot of time outside because it was like 100 degrees plus here in California during that week, and so I didn't want to spend too much time outside. I read it in the evening when it had cooled down a little bit, so that was nice. This was pretty good. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I do think that it was an interesting way to have an origin story for a comic book character, especially one that's really meta and breaks the fourth wall a lot. It was a really interesting origin story to do that with. They made it not so clunky and they made it acceptable to do that just by her origin story, so that was really cool. But ultimately, I just really thought it was corny. It made me laugh sometimes, but not as often as I was hoping to have it make me laugh, so that's why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, just because I was ultimately really disappointed and just not that impressed with the writing style of it. I really thought it was going to be interesting to have MODOK be like the main villain in it, but they didn't really use him to his full capabilities, so just a couple disappointing points to it, but I mean, it was entertaining enough, so that's why it's like on that 3 out of 5 star bridge where I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. Next, I listened to the audio CD for Rosemarys Baby by Ira Levin. I decided to listen to this one because it's only like 6 hours long, and so it would be really easy for me to listen to on my commute during the week to work, but also because I didn't want to just be reading when I absorbed books. I also wanted to listen so that I'd have like another way of reading and kind of change it up a little bit throughout the week. And this really is outside of my comfort zone genre-wise. I don't really read horror, and I think having gotten through this book, I'm gonna stay not reading horror because it just doesn't do it for me, honestly. I'd rather watch a horror film than read a horror book because I think it's scarier. Like, I think that the jump scares are way better as a movie than they are as a book. Things just, when you read them, you can, I feel like I could kind of see things coming more, and when it's in a movie, I don't see it coming as much, and it's just creepy because, like, you have to watch everything happen and just makes it so much more visceral. So I really wish that I had watched Rosemary's Baby, the, like, 1970s one with Mia Farrow, instead of listening to it, because this was, first of all, super slow to start. It took me, like, 75% of the book before I was even interested in anything that was happening, so really hard to get into. Also, Mia Farrow is not a great reader because she reads every character like Mia Farrow. She doesn't kind of change her voice when she's just like narrating, you know, things that aren't dialogue. If she's reading other characters, she reads them as Mia Farrow, so she just didn't do a very good job narrating it, unfortunately. So now I can't really watch the movie because I already know everything that happens, and so it's not going to be scary anymore. So I'm a little bit disappointed that I did that. And I gave Rosemary's Baby 2 out of 5 stars. So as you can tell, I had not quite a great reading week up until that point. Everything I had read, I rated 3 stars or less, and I was getting really disappointed. Then I picked up The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. And this fulfilled 3 of the challenges. It was for a hyped book, it was for a book with a person on the cover, and a book with a character very different from you. And this book blew my mind. Like, this is such a great book. I give it 5 out of 5 stars easily. One of the easiest 5-star books I've ever read. It's just important, and it's more than just a lesson. It's like a really good story within the lesson, and it's art. It's like this craft of art that's amazing, and I don't know what I'm doing with this book. Where do I want to go? All right, camera adjustment, because I was like hitting myself with the book trying to keep it in frame here, so now I don't have to do that, but I'm doing it anyway. Anyway, easily 5 out of 5 stars. I did a whole written review of it on Goodreads, so I'm not going to go into my thoughts, opinions, and feels on this. If you want to check out my full review, I'll link the Goodreads review down below, as well as the cards up here, right here. I think it's going to go right here. Unfortunately, I liked that book so much that everything else I read after that was just going to be a downer. It kind of put me in a reading slump just because I knew that nothing else was going to be that good. But I did pick up 2 more books so that I could read 7 books, which is the final challenge, was to read 7 books in 7 days. And the last 2 things I picked up were both graphic novels. So first I read American Born Chinese by Jean Yuen Lang. And this is about this boy who is an immigrant from China with his parents, and he's going to English high school, and he's just trying to fit in, and it incorporates a lot of Chinese mythology and a lot of trying to become like culturally appropriate in America and trying to fit in, and it has like 3 different storylines, but you kind of by the end of it understand why they all fit together. And I understand that it was trying to give like a lesson basically, but it was just a very weird way to do it, and I don't think it quite hit its point very well, especially because it had a very non-ending ending, and so that was frustrating, and the whole thing was just a little bit incomplete. So I ended up giving this book 2.5 out of 5 stars. And the last thing I read was This One Summer by Mariko and Jillian Tamaki, and this is another graphic novel that tells the story of these 2 girls whose families spend summer in cabins next door to each other, and that's the only time these 2 girlfriends see each other is during the summer. And this particular summer, a lot of family drama is going down, and they both are changing because they're, you know, like 13 and 14 years old. So they're going through a lot of changes, and it's just about navigating their relationships with their families and their relationships with each other. And I had seen so many good reviews of this. I was going into this with really high expectations. Unfortunately, except for the purple coloring of this book, I really wasn't that impressed with it. It didn't have any of the drama that it said it would have. It didn't have any of the emotional, like gut-wrenching feeling things that it said it would have. Mostly it was just bland and boring, and it felt like a wasted opportunity because it would have been so cool to have this like YA coming of age story that was really simplistic, be told in graphic novel format, but it was just, like I said, a wasted opportunity. And I didn't really care for any of the characters. I didn't think it was that engaging in any way. I really had to force myself to turn the pages in this novel, so I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. So that's it. That's what I read for the Booktube-A-Thon 2017. If you guys read any of these books, let me know down below and let me know what you thought of them, and I will see you in my next video. Happy reading!